Thank you so much. So I'm Michael Drobac. I am the Executive Director of the Small UAV Coalition, and the Small UAV Coalition started as about 2 years ago with a bunch of companies that were thinking about delivery systems and new platforms for content services, and we began to have these discussions about how the economy was just fundamentally changing. I had this discussion when I was hired with Netflix. I thought I was going to be working for a DVD by mail company, and then 6 months later, it was all streaming video, and the concerns that we had to address were much different than what we were experiencing with the Postal Service in the U.S. So I think what we saw then is that we thought the Postal Service was difficult, but then we started dealing with government saying you can't allow for kind of the integration of, for example, a streaming service with a social networking site. So I come from a technology background, and then met a number of people in the aviation field, and we decided that governments are going to be reluctant, in some cases reasonably, and in some cases unreasonably. And what we did was we began a dialogue, and we started getting called by companies. So the members of the Small UAV Coalition, and we're thrilled to have a number here today, so Verifly and Precision Hawk, AirMap and DJI were all here and they spoke. They're really at the cutting edge of how this industry is going to evolve. We are unique in that we are the kind of commercial and recreational coalition, and so we're not identified as the military-industrial complex. We are really focused in on recreational and commercial, and there can be some tension there. But it has been a very good dialogue of companies that are really focused on how do we accomplish some of these goals. And the things we're all talking about today, and really what I've liked with this discussion, and it's been very different than past discussions, is that people are much more sober to the realities of some of the problems that we face. So we want safe integration into the airspace. We want to be able to promote the civil and commercial and philanthropic use of UAVs. We want to be able to demonstrate the economic impact. I mean, the DOT's own, the Department of Transportation of the United States' own vision of this is that there were going to be 300 plus uses for the technology, which is almost laughable because I think it's so modest. But what we've also seen is that the industry is continuing to push for greater flexibility, for more access to consumers, and an ability to really address some of these issues. So how high is too high? What are the limits that we should be setting? That we've seen a lot of work in the states, in the United States, to regulate this. We've seen discussions of the sense and avoid, detect and avoid technologies, low-cost ADS-B, segregating the airspace in Class G, who actually owns the airspace. So there was a California bill that the governor vetoed because it was essentially the lawmaker said you can't fly over someone's private property without permission. I mean, some of it was just if it were to have passed, we would have seen just an outrageous impact on the economy. So we spend a lot of time talking about these issues, and we have members that are not only leading in their fields, but also members that are kind of pushing the dialogue in ways that have not been seen before. So, again, in the United States, we spend our time with the FCC, we spend our time with the NTIA, which is a part of the Department of Commerce working on privacy issues. We spend a great deal of time with the FAA, of course, and the Department of Transportation. And, of course, as you see the California state flag, we spend some time at the states because what's happening is not going to be dissimilar to what happens in the EU and elsewhere around the world, which is you're going to see kind of laws that are very different than where we've been. We view success as the many issues that have already come up today, which is precision agriculture, close-set filmmaking, delivery, of course. And some of the restrictions that we are seeing worldwide are saying not overpopulated area, not beyond visual line of sight, can't operate at night, can't operate over people unassociated with the project. Well, I mean, those limitations, in my view, suggest that we're never going to be really unmanned. If those are going to be the limitations that are actually de facto the law, then we're done. And so our task as a community is to say, what can we do safely? How do we, and I think we heard a lot of this from the companies that spoke today, it's that if we're going to be truly successful, we're going to be unmanned, we are going to be autonomous, and we're going to be able to operate over segments of the population with a great degree of ubiquity. And I think it'll be across every sector of the economy. I'm not going to go too much into the FAA. It's been, I would say, an example of what not to do. We have an exemption process. We have no final rule on commercial applications. So right now it's illegal in the United States to operate commercially. It's being done widespread. Everyone knows it. And so I actually do believe that this is an instance where the United States is really falling behind. What we've also seen is that there has been a great deal of state activity. So in the absence of federal leadership, the states have begun to try to regulate, and governors have had to step in and say, wait a second, we don't want to be behind the world in innovation, which of course, in many cases we are. We've also seen that the concept of moving from a proposed rule by the FAA and the DOT and by the US government has been very, very treacherous. And again, there's a registration process going on now in the U.S. where 10 of the Small UAV Coalition members are a part of the coalition, of which is 25. And so they're trying to help move that forward. And we the U.S. continues to lose ground to other countries. Now, I think we're going to see the same type of hysteria all over the world, but I do think that the U.S. has really been a focal point of hysteria about drones. And then recently, 2 weeks ago at the London show, we launched the European Small UAV Coalition with members that are seeking to be a part of what's going to be a similar robust regulatory environment around the use of unmanned aerial vehicles worldwide, but especially now in the EU. I was going to play a video here, but I'm going to skip this if I can. So I'm going to end on this final note. And I'm already over time, so I'm sorry about that. Actually, I'm not at all. The final note really is that, and the video I was going to show was of a 3D robotics vehicle going over a beautiful vineyard, and the vintner said, I can do things now much more efficiently. I can detect my irrigation system better. I can see where I have various vines that are in danger. And he said, my world's changed with this technology. Now, this was obviously shot in the U.S. before he was aware that it was illegal, but that's not a problem because you don't know his name, and I didn't play the video. But the bottom line is for all of you, and I think that the bottom line that we have to recognize, even in the face of law and regulation and policy that is complex and in many ways seems stifling, is that this is done. Technology wins. The minute the idea that we only have 1 million UAVs in the United States is wrong. It's 1 million coming this Christmas, probably another 1.5 million on the market already. So the concept that in some ways we can begin to regulate and go backwards in time is wrong. Technology always wins, and if you can create something that will provide efficiencies, you can provide safety and security, as many of the companies and members of the coalition are working towards. I think what you're going to see is that consumers are going to embrace this. It doesn't mean that you don't have safety as your main consideration, but technology always wins. It just does. Thank you so much.
Thank you.